Hello, and welcome back to another episode of In Play Company with Demetra Gray and Jordan Gray, my husband with the Grays, who are both wearing gray.
Yes.
If you are not watching the recording, we kind of match, but I'm a little bit lighter than Jordan, which is perfect because my hair is also lighter than your hair, so you're a bit more dark of a version of gray than me. Anyway, that's our very exciting introduction. I know you're so excited.
Which I'd say is also somewhat accurate to our senses of humor. I'm also a little bit of a darker version.
I would
sometimes.
say so. I like your dark humor, though. This is actually the first question I was going to ask you.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to ask you why you like to make dark jokes. Or what it does for you.
Great question. I guess I see humor as like one of its main core pillar purposes is to help us deal with the absolute worst parts of life. And it's like a comfort zone expander. It's like, here's your comfort zone, and then like just outside of it, there's this thing, and laughter, comedy, humor, like like you laugh and like stretch to be able to like expand and incorporate that thing so it's like not outside of you. So yeah, literally all of the worst parts of life, worst parts of humanity. I think that humor like has us be able to be with those things in a way that are, less scary, less overwhelming. It's about integration.
Mm-hmm. Did you hold back when we first met?
Yes. Wherever the question's going, already yes.
Like when we very first met, you held back a large portion?
Absolutely.
And so
I still hold back a decent percentage compared to like how hard I go with some of my closest guy friends.
Which is a little sad because sometimes I like when you make dark and funny jokes.
You do, and you still haven't. I still don't bring you 10 out of 10.
Why?
Because sometimes I offer you 8 out of 10 and it doesn't go well.
Still?
Yes.
Can you think of an example?
Yes. I can think of one, but I'm not going to say in a public recording.
Wait, I feel a little upset to hear that.
I said it. I mean, the timing was higher risk. I said it on the immigration call with our lawyer. And you were like, Jordan.
Oh, because we were on a serious call with a lawyer.
I know, but all humor involves risk. All humor has a target. All humor involves social risk. And sometimes, especially with the darkest jokes, you're really like, you're throwing the frisbee far. And that was one of those. I don't want to say what the thing is.
Remember, though, I won't say either. But I just want to say, but I would have found that funny outside of that context.
Okay.
This woman, the lawyer, we want to help us.
I know, that's fair. Let's say it was the timing was certainly a factor. That's my first top of mind example because it's so recent.
Okay, but I feel a little bit. I feel like I find pretty much everything funny now.
Totally. It's a very rare swing and a miss where I go quite dark with you and it doesn't land. It's very rare. Like
But you still said that you hold back now.
I'm saying, compared to the level of thoughts and jokes that come to me, yes, there are some things that I would say to the closest friend of mine who you could easily assume who it is. Like, well, I'll say to him, we just full send.
That's why I like when the two of you are together.
I know.
All right. Well, okay.
So the question was, did I hold back?
Let's rewind. I just got a little bit offended because I feel that now I'm like, well, can you give me a 10 out of 10 moving forward? Anyway, let's rewind for the audience back to the beginning of us dating. So
whole different season.
Answer. You could answer. You held back a lot, but you would have to some extent probably held back with anyone, right? So how did you
sure, somewhat. Like that, early or like the first week or two of dating someone, for sure.
Yeah.
And I also, there's you can test someone's boundaries by lobbing out a 5 out of 10, a 7 out of 10, and seeing how it goes. And then what percentage of those land, which, how often do you get in trouble? And like, that's not, you can't joke with that. That's not funny. And so, yeah, I extra held back, and we talked about it. I was like, it is, a thing I'm aware of, that like, how much do I have to hold back? Or like, do we have a line sense of humor? Because yeah, like you saying, that's not funny was like such a catchphrase.
So let's give some context for people. At the time, I was extremely woke. I would say we were both more liberal somewhat, but I was like way more hardcore than you.
Were several
I was just like very, very, very woke. And I was also underfed. And so I know that because when I started to eat more, when I had my whole food journey in 2021, the first, like, I would say 10 to 15 pounds that I gained, I was so much happier. It was crazy. Yeah. Like, before that, my moods were up and down and just crazy. And then I started eating more and I just became so happy. Now,
and much more free to laugh.
And for people that don't know the whole story, I ended up gaining over 100 pounds, which was a mistake.
Overkill.
We could talk more about that a different time. But I will say, like, that first little bit, I remember us joking about being fat and happy, jolly and happy, because I just became so much happier. And suddenly, so many more of the things Jordan said, I found genuinely funny. So, and I also remember us having, do you feel like this was the time you brought it up? Because I remember us having a conversation, in your bedroom. I remember standing there and you being like, is there anything that a comedian shouldn't joke about? And I was like, yes.
Yeah, like, is there off limits?
Like, there are all sorts of things that I think are off limits because they're inappropriate and politically incorrect and harmful.
Yeah, and I had 0% of that belief. I was like, no, the point of comedy is everything is on the table.
And I was afraid that made you a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And so
in that moment, you're not saying made me a bad person, made whoever found things funny. It's like, oh, you're a bad person. Yeah.
Like, I would have thought that if I had found it funny, that would say something bad about me. So I didn't let myself find it funny.
Yeah.
And I was convinced that I genuinely didn't find it funny. I was like, how could anybody find these topics funny? They're not funny.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch a lot of stand-up. Even stand-up I tried to watch, I was like, I don't find any of this funny.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, did that only really settle for you when I started gaining weight and I became happier? Like, how did you...
I'd say that was one of the steps. Yeah, I mean, that at that point we weren't engaged yet. We were still in our dating year. We lived together from basically day one, so it wasn't just like, oh, like, we'll try boyfriend girlfriend. We were certainly on a clear trajectory. You changed countries for a relationship. We were pretty serious.
We still laughed and had fun. I don't want to make it sound like
we're
just like all angry, serious people. We still obviously like laughed and had fun together.
Totally.
There was just a percentage of...
It felt like I could laugh and have fun with you, but in terms of like what was available to laugh about that I would otherwise laugh about with a best friend, with a partner, yeah, it felt like there was like a 30%, maybe 40% ceiling of like, we're only allowed like a minority range of like what's allowed. And so it certainly felt truncated. So yeah, you gaining weight and getting happier and laughing more, us starting to watch any stand-up specials together, especially of the more problematic of the day people.
Well, maybe that was a factor too. Because we got engaged soon after I started gaining weight. Yes. So it wasn't really like it was majorly holding you back. But I think the other thing that happened was I became less woke.
Right.
In kind of 2020.
Yeah. Like a lot of the world did in that same year.
And I was just like, okay. And
so it wasn't like this is such a... I mean, I think that hasn't been entirely uncommon for me, that I can go way harder in the paint, as people would say, with my guy friends versus my girlfriends. I think
that's common for most guys, I would think.
Yeah, and it's not just because it's like, base level locker room talk, like, stupid, simple sexist jokes. Like, it was mainly the darkest stuff. There was rarely, gender or like, guys are like this, girls are like this. Like, that's not really, that rarely appeals comparatively. But yeah, like, it wasn't a new experience for me to be like, okay, I have to like reel way back with a girlfriend. Like, that wasn't entirely unfamiliar. But it was, it was like, okay, I have to be like a bit extra cautious with you. And there was clearly enough of that melting and shifting that I was like, I can buy this ring. This is like, it's great. And like, I can see the trajectory. And even if it goes from a 4 to a 7, everything else is already so, not just workable, but like fantastic. I knew my body felt about you, all the other things that, it didn't feel like a major concession. But then it just got, it was getting better, and then it got better and better. And I was like, okay, this is like really melting away.
Isn't it funny? So, for anybody listening, I'll say it. Jordan and I, especially this year, I think in general the whole time, but especially this year, we've just magically started to change more into who each other would most ideally...
Dream partner.
Like, we already felt like we were a perfect match, and everything was so great, but there have been really funny things happening this year, especially.
For each of us, that are just like a joke.
Because the first thing I was going to say is that I feel like we have been really lucky that we've grown together at the same pace in general throughout our whole relationship, which is now just about 6 years long. Like, we have, I don't know if it's luck or we just chose a really good partner, but we've grown in very similar ways. We both changed a lot. But this past year, I just think that we have just, like, the craziest things have happened where we've just become more and more each other's dream version.
Oh. Yeah, like organically, if like one of us was like, oh, I think I'm gonna like lean into like this hobby, or I think like this is intriguing me more.
So basically, like, just things like I'm suddenly like, oh, I think I'd like to spend less money and sell all our things and be minimalists.
Right, and which is the thing that I was like all about in the beginning of a relationship. She was like, I'm a maximalist, I'll never be a minimalist. And I was like, okay, like that's fine.
And now suddenly I'm just like, oh, I think I'm a minimalist now. And he's
I was
like, what?
Okay, cool.
And I feel like similarly with humor, I'm just like, darkest humor. I love that the most now. You're just becoming a tank with your muscles. Mm-hmm. Jordan's lifting and I forget the other things, but there's just been
moving to the States. I want to buy a truck.
He wants to be American. Yeah, that was the other thing he said the other day. We want to shoot guns. Jordan's become like, and they weren't things I felt like I was settling on at all. I didn't feel like we were settling in any possible way, but it was just sort of these things where it's like, would it be a preference?
They're all icing. They're just
it's just like extra icing. I'm like, I grew up in country Pennsylvania, and now I'm like, now my Canadian husband wants to get jacked and get a big pickup truck and shoot guns and be American.
It's like, it's like already your favorite cake or cupcake in the world. It's like they're just like adding 8, 9, 10 layers of icing. You're like, okay, I didn't think this could get any better, but cool. I'm not going to complain.
And so it's been this very funny thing that you said that out of nowhere to me the other day. He was just like, do they have pickup trucks that are, I don't remember.
They can fit car seats.
Yeah, that can fit.
Because I've only seen trucks that I remember. Only seen like, big full-size trucks that are like 2 good size, driver, passenger seats. And I was like, are there ones where you can like easily fit multiple car seats? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, there's different like lengths. And I was like, yeah, but I thought the length was just extra like truck bed. She's like, no, you like can have multiple passengers. So yeah, I started researching like what are the best extended cab trucks that we can buy when we move to the States. And she's just like, what is my life?
Yeah. And so I feel like, we keep both doing things like that where all of a sudden we're just like, you're doing exactly the things that I most want organically on your own.
And so humor is one of those things.
One of those things where I think I've shifted dramatically. Yeah. And now, especially this year, I've been wanting to watch a lot of stand-up.
Yep.
We were doing it more since my humor started to shift.
But especially the last 12 months.
But especially the last 12 months. And now I feel like I have favorite comedians and favorite specials. And
when we try to watch a comedian that's like too PC or too woke, you know, within 5 minutes you're like, no. Like, you know, like the things that probably would have been like the only, you know, deemed the most safe, correct material 6 years ago, now you like won't sit through it all.
I like the most like arrogant, dark, just that kind of humor is my favorite.
Yeah.
So what do you feel that, well, first of all, has your humor always been as dark?
Pretty much, yeah.
It's gotten darker.
I think there has been any escalation over the decades. Like if I said some of the stuff to, you know, that I find hilarious now to 12-year-old me, would I have been like very, you know, wide-eyed, like, whoa, sure. I bet there's been like some slow boiled frog thing, which is actually not a true thing. Frogs do hop out.
They do?
Yeah, they're like,
yeah.
You can like slowly turn it up. No, it's false. They jump out. I know, not a thing. So yeah, there's been some escalation, and I think from teen years on now. No, when I think about some of the jokes that my best friend and I would make when we were like 10, 11, 12 and filming skits, no, it's been pretty constant.
Something Jordan and I did over the past few months is we re-recorded
some of those skits.
Some of Jordan's childhood skits together and to send to his friend.
Yeah.
We also recorded a really funny video to send to my brother.
Yes. Which has been a major hit.
My brother's sense of humor, my brother has a brain injury, if you don't know, and his sense of humor is very much
5-year-old boy.
5-year-old.
Fart jokes.
Yeah, teenage boy. Yeah, just fart jokes, poop jokes, a Family Guy, anything, or South Park, like all that kind of.
Yeah.
And yeah, we made a video of me pretending to do a huge fart.
Like a minute-long fart.
And Jordan made it so that it cut to a video. Jordan is a very talented video editor, and he made it so the city was crumbling.
There's like earthquake footage of like cities crumbling, and then like the entire planet rumbling with like, you know, very vigorous shaking. And then at the end, he had me, this was Jordan's script that I acted out. This is my director note.
He had me
huff it.
Like, use my hand, for people who are listening and not watching, use my hand to waft the air up and then take a big inhale and be very pleased and walk away.
And so, we like filmed that pretty much with her brother in mind, and he's since watched it like over 100 times.
Yeah, it must have been at least like 2 months ago.
Yeah, about that.
Probably 2 months ago, and I know he watched it like 100 times the first day. We watched him watch it on FaceTime, and it was like
the best day of his life.
It was like and
he couldn't believe it.
And then the other day we talked to him, and we were like, Damon, when's the last time you watched that video? And he was like, 4 days ago?
Yeah.
Or something.
So he's still watching it weekly, unprovoked.
His older sister just doing the biggest fart that's ever occurred.
Yeah.
He was like, is that a real fart? That was what he said.
Yeah, it's like, no, she didn't fart for a minute straight. That's just sound effects.
But I've always found poop funny. I will say. This was a big part of my childhood, was like with my cousins. We watched things. Oh man, I don't know if any of you would remember. It depends on, I guess, the person's age. But I was growing up just as the internet was coming out. And we watched all sorts of crazy things because I had older cousins who we were very close with. We watched Granny Boobs. The Granny... I showed you Granny Boobs. Her boobs, they shake around and she dances.
Do your boobs hang low?
Yeah. That's Granny Boobs.
Yeah.
And lots of like videos like that we would. That's been a part of, at least with my siblings. My parents were not so much poop joke people. But I feel that humor was an essential, actually when my brother's accident happened. That was when I was 19. Damon was 17. I actually think that, and then a lot of dark stuff happened in the years after that in my family, and I think that humor was an essential part of getting us through all of that. Like, I remember we were sitting in the ICU. My family was basically living there. They had a meditation room in the ICU at the hospital, and we basically took it over, our whole family. And my cousins would come in, my grandparents would come in. And I just remember that even at that time, so my brother was in a coma. They thought he would die. Like, they thought for sure he was brain dead, he was going to die, but he made it through the surgery. And he was in the ICU, like, non-responsive for over a month. And so we lived at the hospital. I slept at the hospital for over a week. And during that time, even though it was obviously the most horrific time you can imagine, there was still moments ever where we would laugh. Like, my mom and I would laugh, and you I think said earlier, it's like a pressure release valve. Is that something you said? It felt very much like that for me, and we would just laugh at just the dumbest things. Like, even I remember my grandmother coming. My grandparents would come and they would sit in the meditation room and they would just sit there, and every so often my grandfather would say something and my grandmother couldn't hear anything, so she'd be like, "What?" And we would all laugh, like, behind her back. We would be like, "Oh yeah, I can't hear." Like, just little things where it helped. Like, it helped to be able to laugh. It helped to be able to even to look at Damon, and we would say things like, "Oh, Damon would think it's so cool, like, if he could see himself," because my brother, like, he had been so into computers and things, and suddenly he was hooked up to all these machines. And we would say things like, "Ooh, Damon would find this so funny." Damon would find, like, and it was all these little bits of making it lighter that no one was ever like, "You can't be laughing in this situation.
You should all be depressed and crying only."
Yeah.
I mean, that's, like, from my worldview, that's one of the major reasons why sense of humor is consistently, like, voted as one of the most important non-physical traits in a romantic partner, because inevitably across years, decades of life together, like, there's going to be awful things. And, like, if you can't all, simultaneously be experiencing a thing and see outside of it enough to be able to poke fun at it and to, like, add that levity, it's like, it's like that pressure release of, like, stuff's going to happen. And if we're taking everything so seriously that there's no humor allowed, then life is only, more drudgery. And so, even in the worst, someone dying, about to die, someone who did die, the most traumatic days of your life, like, having someone there that you can have any of those moments of, like, this is also funny in any way possible, like, that helps.
Didn't you tell me, because you've had a couple close friends die?
Yeah, who were quite young.
Didn't you? I feel like you told me a story recently. I don't remember what it was. I don't know if you would want to tell it or not.
Yeah. I can. It's like, it's right on that edge of, like, is it too dark for public consumption? I'll use a different name.
Okay.
So, I've lost two friends quite young. Like, they were young, because I also was, but quite young people to die. And one of them was a really good friend. One of them was quite a good friend. And the first one, probably the first person in my whole life that died who, like, wasn't over 70. Like, grandparents, great grandparents. I lost those people when I was younger at that point in time. And my friend Danny, I'll say his name. Shout out Danny if he's listening to this. I think within a week, like maybe 3 or 4 days after my first friend passed away, as with a lot of young deaths, like, quite aggressive and unexpected way to die. There were photos of my friend sitting on the, like, living room table, just like, coffee table. And my friend Danny came over, I think, to just, like, hang out, take my mind off it somewhat. He's a friend that I've historically just done a lot of laughing with. We have a very like easy, laughy relationship. And yeah, he walked in and he'd like just walked in the door, taken off his shoes. We were like about to sit down on the couches surrounding this table. He'd been physically in my apartment at that point for, under 30 seconds. Very few words had been said. And before we sat down, presumably for him to like console me, I gestured at 2 photos that I had of me and the friend who'd passed. I said, "Oh, like there's my dead friend Allison." And he was just like, "Oh man," like to lead with that and to be the one that like, he barely knew her. I was the one in, more emotional pain. Like even that, like adding my own levity of like, this is one of the worst things that's happened to me in my life thus far. And like nothing, like we can still be who we are. There's still allowed to be levity, even in those moments. And yeah, he laughed and he was just like, "Oh my God." Because he was like, okay, like that's part of the joke. It's like, this isn't the thing to say right now. But he said it. So, okay, I guess we're allowed to still be ourselves and still be humans, even while he's legitimately grieving.
Yeah. It does. It releases the pressure and it helps. Humor has always served that function. I think about sometimes how kings and I don't like they always had the court jester
Yep.
And that comedian role was so honored that was often the only person who could make fun of the king, who could say anything bad about the king whatsoever. Like you said it in public, you're just a citizen or whatever, you could, I don't know, get put in jail or die or whatever.
Be beheaded. Whatever kings did back then.
But they but the court jester, whoever it was that they had doing the humor that would come in, like those people were allowed to make fun because they still saw the importance. Yeah.
And that was part of it. It's like you knew something was, something wasn't true, something was bullshit, something was like too filled with hot air if there was a thing that was off limits. If you couldn't poke fun at something like, oh, that's the no-go territory, like that's not a good sign. That's not a psychologically healthy sign for, the king's, for the kingdom, for the whoever. Like if someone or something or some aspect is off limits, like that isn't good. Mm-hmm. Like it's a fragile part of the system.
Something I think you do quite well is you often will poke fun at yourself, like your own ego.
Oh, right.
In moments where, and I'm always surprised because you do it so close to, not that I'm not surprised you do it at all, but I'm surprised sometimes where if you're really in it, like you're in some sort of story and I call it out and there's like a tense moment or, we're just in some sort of conversation like that.
Yeah.
You can often
flip
very quickly and make fun of that same story that you were just in so intensely. And I'm often surprised because I'm like, I would expect you to do that, but maybe like hours later. But sometimes you do it very quickly.
Yeah. And to me, like that, not just to do my own horn, but for anyone, to me, that in itself, like, is a sign of psychological health. That, like, often one of the most appropriate responses to some shadow aspect that someone's really wrestling with is to just laugh at it, is to, like, burst their own bubble and be like, it's kind of just like waking up from a dream and being like, this is ridiculous. This isn't a thing. And I have a short story about that, not about myself. Well, I'm involved in it, but like that ties in that flip and like the dark thing. So the first apartment that we lived in, it's like a small apartment building on the beach in Vancouver. And before we were dating, I lived there for a couple of years with 5 other guys that were like in men's groups, in like, in inner growth work circles with me. And one of the guys one night messaged me quite late, like, after 10 o'clock, which at that point is like, I'm winding down, I'm about to go to bed. But he was like, hey man, I'm like really struggling. And he shared some like darker thoughts that were basically like, okay, he's been in a bad place for weeks, if not months. This is like this isn't someone who reaches out for help much at all. This is a legitimate, like, hey, I'm not in a good place. We went for a walk, just he and I, and yeah, he basically had been struggling for a while and shared, like, this isn't going well. This other part of my life just feels like it's in shambles, and like I just can't get momentum in this. And he shared very explicit suicidal thoughts of just like, yeah, and like just sometimes I'm just like, man, like, is this worth it? Like, what am I, like, why am I even here? Like I have these thoughts that are just like, yeah, I just like don't know what to do with them. And at this point, I had, I'd say, about a year of rapport of knowing him. We weren't best friends, but we certainly knew each other. He um, knew me and felt safe enough with me to have reached out to me in the first place. Which, if you've never been a man, can be a pretty big ask for like, an outwardly confident, stable seeming, young middle-aged guy. And in this moment, I had options of what I could say, but he just, he did like a 10, 15-minute kind of brain dump of like, here are all the things I'm struggling with and blah, blah, ending with suicidal thoughts. And the first and only thing I said to break my silence after him sharing all these things was, oh, I'm such a fucking loser. I should just kill myself. And I said that. Again, all humor involves some social risk. These are the first words I said. It's like pitch blackout. We're walking by the water, 10:30 at night. And he just cracks up laughing. And he's just like, in that moment, the most loving thing I could do is be like, fuck you and fuck all this. Like that's really the like. And then I went into like, okay, like, yeah, like we can talk about action steps and do you need to change jobs and, is this relationship not working for you? Cool, fine. It wasn't just like, go fuck yourself and then anyways, see ya, bro.
Yeah.
Hide the knives before you go to bed. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I like led with being, embodying a caricature of his ego, which is just like, I'm a fucking loser. I should kill myself and I've got nothing going for me. And I was like, I knew that wasn't entirely true. And so that was the best thing I could do to start with. Again, would I do that if I worked at the suicide hotline and I was talking to a total stranger? Probably wouldn't lead with that. But someone who I was decent, acquaintances with, had rapport with, like, that's what you're like totally allowed to have be a factor.
Yeah.
And it went really well. And then we talked about, the stuff of his life. And he's referenced it since. That you were just like, yeah, that was incredibly helpful. Like, yeah. I was very in it. And I felt less alone because you gave me enough distance to laugh at it and go, okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think there's such a distinction between laughing at our ego versus, like, you wouldn't make fun of someone's core self.
Totally.
I think that was just landing for me as you were speaking. I was like, there is such a distinction there because we don't do a lot of like we don't do any criticism with each other or making fun of each other.
No.
Which is something I grew up with, which is really, like, I don't like it. It always felt mean underneath the surface.
Yeah.
But there's a strong distinction between that, I think, and poking fun at someone's story or... Yeah.
Totally. And that's the, like, yeah, you don't poke fun of, you don't use dark humor on someone's, like, essence or who they are because, again, every joke has a target, whether it's a person or not. There's some thing that it's aimed at. And so, yeah, it would always be mean-spirited to be like, oh, one of your core gifts is this, and so I'm going to make fun of that thing. It's like, that's unkind. Yeah. And, like, I could also, with that particular person, that instance, lead with that because I know who he is. I know how powerful he is. And, like, that's kind of inherent. And, like, I'm going to, like, beat up on this, like, this, signal noise that's coming through because I know who you are and this isn't it. And we both know that's not it. And so, I could go hard on that thing because it's like, that's not your essence. That's nowhere near your essence. And we both know it. You've forgotten it right now and that's fine. But like, we can get back to, okay, and who are you really?
We've talked about together before also about how we've used that to break tension. Even like if we have a sort of, not a real conflict, but a milder conflict, you often will just sort of pop the bubble of like, are we fighting? Just like, laughing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Can we be friends again? Yeah.
It's amazing at how quickly that can dissipate something when it's not, we wouldn't do it with a fight that's like really based on something that's significant or important.
Yeah.
But there's just little tiffs or something. It's just like, I feel like humor is super.
If someone's tired or grumpy or like there's a superficial bubble, like those are the most poppable of like, does someone need a snack? Like, whatever it is to.
Your story reminded me of one time I was at a retreat. I think I've told you this story before, but I was at a retreat where we had just done this big, it was early morning. It was the first thing we had done that morning. We all had to go and do it was probably some sort of breath work exercise. And whatever it was, it brought up a ton of emotion for me. And I was crying and crying and crying. And it just felt like this huge emotional release. And I felt so, I want to say it was very existential. Like it was just like, what's wrong with the world and what's the meaning? And I'm just having all this emotion. And I wanted to talk to the woman who led us through the exercise. But how when something ends, like different students want to talk to the teacher. So I was sort of waiting my turn. And by the time it was my turn, basically everybody else was gone and they had all gone to breakfast. And I remember the woman who had led us through it, she was so sweet, just had like such a kind of similar to me. We had similar personalities in our just like bubbly kind of sweetness. And I remember the woman before me had just finished with her, like she had her hip pillows and do this big like extra thing, and I was like, okay, it's gonna be my turn to do all that. And she looked at me and I was like, all this stuff, and I was like crying and just like all these things, and she just looked at me and I was like, part of me feels this and part of me feels that and part of me, and she just looks and she was like, is there a part of you that wants to go get breakfast? And it just immediately made me laugh. And I was just like, yeah, okay, you're right, let's just go eat. This is not important at all. It's like, yeah, it's a skill to know when to do something like that, but it was just like, it was exactly what I needed. It was like, I didn't need more taking it so seriously. It was like, yeah, let's just go eat food and be together, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we have covered like literally everything I wanted to. Oh, I guess I was going to ask you, do you think now that there's anything we shouldn't laugh about?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
No, I didn't think that 10, 20 years ago. I actually don't think that now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it literally feels like totally synonymous with, is there anything you can't make art about? Is there anything you shouldn't paint? Is there anything you shouldn't make a film about? Isn't there? Like, just like, no. Mm-hmm. Of course not.
My favorite jokes are really the ones that make me go like, oh no, at the same time when I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Those are my absolute favorite jokes.
Yeah. Yeah. You reminded me, like, yeah, I remember there was one, medium bordering on darker joke, like just a thing that I threw out as a kind of like throwaway that I didn't think you would go for. I think this was within the last year and a half, where I told like the true story of, I had a girlfriend, 15, many years ago. And like her best friend, was dating a guy, they got pregnant. They like, they were kind of like a.
I remember that.
And they were like, yeah, like they were young. They didn't have that much money. And then they found out they were pregnant. Okay, like I guess we'll be more of a serious couple. And they were like, I don't think they'd gotten engaged yet, but they were like, okay, we'll like be a thing because we have a kid coming now. And I I think it was the boyfriend's parents won the lottery. Like they won.
This is a true story.
True story. Yeah, literally.
He was telling me this story.
Yeah, and they won. I believe it was multi seven figures, something like in the 2 to 5 million range. And the parents at that point in their life, like they were set up, they were fine. They were like, we're good. Oh, our son, maybe only son, is about to become a parent. And so they passed on the lottery winnings to them. They were just like, you can have this. And so they bought a house, in cash, got a car, just like, okay, like now we're set up. And they just were gifted this money, with no conditions. And so they were very together and they had the kid. And that baby was actually Adolf Hitler, was what I said to Demetra like a year and a bit ago.
Where we were in the car, I think, and you were telling me this whole elaborate story. You're like, this is a true story, which it is.
Not the
Hitler part.
Minus the last sentence. That is a real thing that happened.
So he had me like in the same way a good bit would. Like I was on the train. I was believing.
And it was emotionally congruous because I was like, it was a story that I remembered that I was excited to tell you about. I was like, this is a real thing, and isn't this crazy? And like, what a fortunate start in life. And then I was like, a part of me was like, was that interesting enough of a story? So I said that at the end, and she just like bust up laughing. And I was like I was like, oh, like that was
baby was off it.
And I was like, you like that? And she was like, hey, it's such a like sweet innocent story. And then you said this. Also
because it was so unexpected.
Totally. And that's like surprise is also a key element in humor.
You have an eyelash on your face.
Let me make a wish. Away from your coffee. Nice.
Be extra luck maybe if it went into my coffee and I drank it down.
Consume my wish.
The Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, for anyone who has a tight ass about that, I'm Jewish, technically, so I can make Hitler jokes.
No, we don't need to give any. I'm tired of people justifying.
I want to acknowledge that we're on stolen land right now.
Make sure everybody knows that we don't actually like Hitler or want Hitler to exist. That's a thing we need to say out loud now.
Well, he doesn't exist. He's certainly dead, but yeah.
But a new one we don't want to exist.
A new one?
Like, we're not...
wishing a new one into existence?
Yeah, like, we're not...
This
like,
podcast is gonna... Yeah.
That's like a thing that people feel like they have to say now, is like, I'm not supporting Hitler.
Yeah, that baby was not actually Hitler. It's like, yeah, I mean, chronologically, he wouldn't be if it was a friend's baby that I know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think either that there should be anything. Do you ever, though, hear jokes that, like, hit you a little bit personally still? Or no? Do you feel like you can freely...
Personally? I mean, there are jokes that are, like, lazy or poorly formulated. Like, I'm not saying, like, every level of joke is equal. But
what I mean is, like,
that I'm personally offended by.
I do find... No, because for me, I don't find any jokes offensive anymore. But I do notice sometimes still, and maybe this is just things that I haven't fully integrated because they've been traumatic for me. But, like, every so often, if someone makes, like, a wheelchair disabled joke, like, sometimes I can find the joke funny. Like, I laugh, and it's funny, but at the same time, I feel a bit of, like, oh, like, because my brother's in a wheelchair, like, I feel the,
dissonance?
It's not a dissonance. It's not a problem with the joke itself or the comedian at all. It's just a sense of, like, I guess it just is like, oh, that still hurts me, in me.
And is the thought then that shouldn't be joked about? No. Or just like, ooh, there's just some emotion?
Yeah, there's just some emotion.
Got it.
So that's what I was wondering. If at some point... Because what's interesting, and this is kind of a different subject, but my brother doesn't really have... I mean, who knows how his brain works now, but he... he has a lot of... he has a traumatic brain injury, and he... can talk and he remembers everything, but he's very different. He's kind of like a child sometimes, like his very weird filters.
But he finds everything funny.
Yeah.
And he actually finds the wheelchair stuff. Remember, we bought him for Christmas, 2 or 3 Christmases ago. Who's that midget comedian? Isn't there a midget? You're not allowed to say that word anymore either, but I'm saying it. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm a little scared of midgets. I want to say it. I want to tell everyone, because of the spirit of this podcast, I feel like we should be allowed to say things. I'm not saying that is even a good way to feel. I'm just saying it's a true thing that I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, I think a lot of hesitancy or whatever, caution, fear, dissonance with humor. It just, it's like it's showing us a dusty corner of our mental attic. Like, oh, there's still like a thing here.
Yeah.
It's just, it's some shadow piece still wants some energy. Like when I have, I talk to clients one-on-one, that's like a good percentage of my business is one-on-one conversations with people that share pretty private stuff. And the number of times, at least once a month, someone will say a thing that is like darker or like less, public, socially savory. And they'll be like, oh, I know, like it's a bad thought to have. I shouldn't feel this way. It's like, no, like stop, like the doubling down.
Yeah.
Someone will be like, I wish this person was just dead. And it's like, that's allowed to be a thought.
Yeah.
Whoever the person, like having a thought of like, I wish this person didn't exist, is not equivalent to you buying ammunition and ending someone's life with your hands. Like and so having, to me that like, what's allowed to be joked about, what's in or what's out. Yeah. So to your original question, am I ever like, even the word offended is, I feel like
it's not offended. It's just like emotionally impacted in a way that's not just laughter.
I mean, if I, sat with it for an hour and thought of the last 100 instances of hearing jokes, I'm sure I could find a nuanced emotion that wasn't just laughter. But is it anything that I would deem as negative? Like, I don't think so.
I think my underlying question was just, why does that happen for me? And I think you've touched on it, which is just, I think it's sort of a area of the closet.
Yeah.
That is not all the way healed.
In the light. Yeah, I think I will always have a sliver in my mind of this whole fucking thing is a joke. Like, life. All of life is just like we're a bunch of like shitting, puking, little dusts of sand on a spinning beach ball in the middle of an infinitely unknowable galaxy. Like, and we're like, ugh, my Tesla has a scratch on it. Like, who the fuck are you? No one cares. It's, whatever like the thing is that we're taking so seriously. It's just like, isn't this whole thing funny? Isn't there like even a 0.1% sliver in your psyche that can like also see that? So yeah, when people make jokes, whether they're like expertly crafted or even just like, lazy, blunt force, stupid jokes about things that should hold more emotional charge for me. If someone's joking about, suicide or male suicide or things about Jews or 21-year-old life coaches, like whatever things are that like could hook into any part of any iterations of my identity throughout my entire life. Yeah, I think, things like, I know you didn't use this word, but like being offended, being embarrassed, like there's some emotions that I just see as pretty high on the useless scale, and I just don't tend to engage with them. Ever? Sure, probably, but like with any regularity, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. But what if it was a joke about like that was very close to home about how one of your friends died or something? Do you think?
I mean, again, I think if it's, because maybe there's like any layer of snobbery of, I feel like I've consumed hundreds of hours of stand-up enough to know when a joke is really well, expertly crafted, I just see the artistry in it. I'm just like, wow. Just like I can hear genres of music that I don't like, but I can hear or, maybe film is a bit more of a thing for me since I went to film school for a bunch of years. Like, I can not be enjoying a movie and still be like, oh, that's a cool lighting choice, or like this sound editing thing. Like, there's still something in it. It's still an art form. I can still be like, interesting. Like, this is the thing that I appreciate, that I liked about it. Or if it wasn't good, I can also be like, oh, like the thing that was flat about this was like this part was off. The punchline wasn't close enough to the last word of the sentence, or the timing was off, or, they laughed and they broke the tension before the punchline. Like, I can still, I don't know, just like observe the art form. But yeah, I still don't think there's anything that should be off limits. I don't think yeah, and I'm imagining those types of scenarios where I'm not going to name the ways that the two friends died, but like if someone made a great or lazy joke about those things, yeah, I think it'll just be like, it's either funny or not, but I'm not like, don't go there, bud.
I think you're right in the sense of how well the joke is done. It also does matter.
For sure.
I want to close my loop from before, though. Who is the midget comedian? He is a midget, right?
Yes.
I'm not making that up.
No, you're definitely not making it up.
I don't know his name. But, I mean, there can't be that many.
There's probably a bunch, but I'd say he is the most.
You think there's a bunch of midget comedians?
Sure. I think there's a lot of comedians, and I think there's a decent percentage of midgets in the world, so, like, what percentage of that overlap,
You think there's more than, like, 5?
Yes. Of course.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen Eddie in person. I used to go to a lot of stand-up in person.
Midget conferences. What's his name? That we both know the guy who wrote those books. I hope they serve beer in hell.
Oh.
Who wrote that book?
Yeah. Tucker Max.
I read anyway. I know that they have midget conferences because Tucker Max. I read his book in high school. And was infatuated with Tucker Max in high school, which will tell you everything about who I was. I found that funny in high school, so it wasn't until I became woke that I found things less funny. He went to a midget conference and he wanted to have sex with a midget, and he was successful.
That. Yeah, I read that play by play.
So I wonder if they ever have comedian. Anyway, the story I had wanted to say was that we hired that guy through. What's
Cameo.
that website?
Cameo. We can like hire a celebrity to do like
for my brother.
A video.
And we told him that my brother likes dark humor. Like he finds all these things funny. And when the guy made the cameo, I was a little cringy. Like I was like, "Ooh, can I send this to Damon?"
He went for it.
He went for it with like the wheelchair. I don't remember all his jokes, but he was really.
He didn't hold back.
Yeah, he didn't hold back at all about my brother's situation, and I was kind of like, is this okay to send him?
Will he still find it funny?
Like, it's pretty on the nose of, like, all these things that, like, all these ways your life is limited.
Yeah.
And, my brother found it hilarious.
He loved it.
He loved it. Yeah. He laughed and laughed. He watched it over and over and over.
He knows his name. I've heard him say his name several times.
Does it start with a B? But what I'm saying is, there can't be that many, I'm sure, that if anyone...
I mean, at that level of fame, no, but...
Yeah, he's famous enough that I think...
Oh, yeah.
Damon wanted to go see him in person or something.
Yeah, no, he's big. He's got he does good-sized shows.
Mm-hmm.
His career's going great.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, there's not hundreds at that level of fame, but there are hundreds in the world who do open mics and who I've seen...
Title this episode, Midget Comedians.
No. Midget comedians, Hitler jokes, and one of the mocking your friend's suicidal ideation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go for it.
I was just gonna say it is important. It's really important to be able to laugh at everything. And I think it's I actually saw a piece the other day, people were saying it's kind of a sign of those cluster B personality disorders, like to not be able to laugh at yourself at certain things.
Sure.
Which I had never thought about before, but I think is accurate, and I think that's a large part of just the whole woke world, like humor's not allowed.
I mean, narcissism is like predicated on low self-esteem. So like if someone's like, I'm a worthless piece of shit in secret and need to be this like big, scary pufferfish to overcompensate, then yeah, someone like trying to poke fun at the pufferfish when it's inflated is like, don't you fucking dare.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has to like protect itself, like, no. And that's, that's the like the boy prince, tyrant king who like can't be made fun of in court. It's like, okay, that's not good for any of us if something's off limits and it can't be made fun of. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think there's a distinction between, like, we don't make fun of each other.
No. You and I?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
So I just want to make that clear to people that it's like, the kind of humor that we're talking about is not, like, mean at somebody's core.
No. Yeah, to me that's like the laziest form of humor that like is barely funny, and it just it's like grade 1, just there's nothing.
I also think I've become funnier.
For sure. Yeah, it's a muscle. You totally have.
I've had dreams lately where I've been telling jokes in my dreams, and
people that are good.
They're funny.
They're not just like dream jokes. Like you've told something to me in real waking hours. I'm like, that's a really clever wordplay to dream up in a dream.
Yeah, I don't. If any of you remember a while back, on my old podcast, Jordan and I talked about how you always have happy dreams, or you almost always have really happy dreams, and my dreams would always be just like people killing me and just intense,
yelling at you or being in trouble.
More dark, intense dreams.
Yeah.
And lately, my dreams have started to shift. I've been having happy dreams like Jordan.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've never had happy dreams, know that it is possible.
And it's largely possible by being happier and kinder to yourself in your waking hours. Like you did.
Your subconscious being happier.
Totally. Like you did work in just who you're being on a daily basis that like has bled into how you think and what you dream, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I had a couple more things that I thought of while you were talking, but now I don't remember what they are, so.
All right. Humor, a useful tool for dealing with all parts of life.
I think the final thing I'll say is just that I don't think anyone should be able to tell you what you should and shouldn't laugh at, and you should never feel bad about finding something funny. I felt like for me, there was something that happened in leaving being woke and also in eating more, that when I did start to, it just felt like I could suddenly breathe again, and I didn't know that I had been being suffocated, but it was suddenly like, oh, like I'm allowed to laugh at life. I'm allowed to find these things. And I think also that's part of why there's so much mental illness on the left. Like, I don't know if you've seen, but it's like, I saw an article, there's actually a psychologist getting prosecuted, or they're like trying to get him prosecuted in Germany because he did an interview where he said that it's mostly like young leftist girls who are in his office, like having mental problems because their worldview is so
serious.
It's serious and it's anxious, and it's just like everything is so important, and they're anxious and they're depressed and they're on all these different medications. And I think you see that largely, and I see that in my younger self, because there is something in this rigid, we're not allowed to laugh, we're not allowed to have fun in life because of all these serious things that are happening. You're just like not allowed. Here's a final thing I do want to say too. People have been tearing apart Elon Musk for his humor. Like, it was someone, I can't remember who the journalist was, but they've written lots of articles about this, but basically being like, how immature, because he makes so many funny jokes. For anybody who doesn't know, like on his X profile, just in general,
it's a lot of memes.
a lot of memes, a lot of like, you know, find 69 funny, like a very like young boy sense of humor still.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, what man in his 50s is making jokes like this and he's not taking anything seriously and blah blah blah. And it's like, to me it is so obvious that he has been as successful as he has been. Like, that humor keeps him sane, and not taking everything so seriously keeps him sane. And like, yeah, I just think it's funny when people they're like, how dare he laugh at these little things? It's hilarious. And they like took that photo. I showed you that photo of him with the chainsaw on the stage a while back. I think it was like the president of Argentina or what, gave him a chainsaw, and Elon's standing on the stage with a big chainsaw, and he had dressed up like the meme of him in the dojo. So he's wearing like these big glasses and this gold chain, and he like has the chainsaw, and people are just like, what, this is ridiculous, is this our government? And it's just like, this is hilarious. Like, we're allowed to laugh, we're allowed to find this funny, we're allowed, like, he's allowed to be doing the most serious work and also like wearing funny t-shirts and like just not taking things seriously.
Yeah, and then I've seen very left-leaning media sources taking that image and being like, you know, just making him into like the Terminator that in the first movie, that like he's like joking about like, you know, he's like, you know, puts these like amazing, you know, do-gooder, like he's like killing these people's jobs and then like laughing about it on stage like a fucking monster.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a very easy meme to misappropriate and go like, you know, like that caricature of a moment that you can be like, oh, like we get to use this for our purposes. Like, you know.
Or when he changed his ex name to Harry Balls.
Right.
And then they all took it so seriously, and they were like on each media station being like, Elon changed his name to Harry Balls, and like we should all take this very seriously. How dare he? Whatever. And it's just like, everybody is laughing at you.
That's, anyone who's been following my work for years has heard me quote this quote that isn't mine. It's Dr. Stuart Brown. The opposite of play isn't work. The opposite of play is depression. It's like, when you say, you know, play's off limits, everything's very serious, you guys, life is serious, life is all drudgery, it's like, of course you're going to be depressed. Like, you're really telling your inner child to sit down and shut the fuck up, and you're not important. Everything is very serious and tight and important. It's like, guess what? Like, SSRIs are going to skyrocket. Everyone's going to feel terrified and isolated, and like, that's, you know, the inevitability of depression for people that are chronically isolated. Like, the main reason is when you're not reality testing your thoughts with any other human, you just like chew on and spiral into yourself, and like these, you know, these specks of sand become massive boulders and mountains that are just crushing you with their weight. And like, that is undone by by social contact. And with social contact comes the ability to look at things objectively, to, you know, to be in a forest and be like, oh, I'm just a tiny little thing and it's not that serious and it's totally fine. But yeah, without having our bubbles burst, you know, the bubbles inevitably form when you're in serious land, when you're isolated for, you know, way too much time. And yeah, humor is just like, this is my quote, but laughter is an instant vacation. Like, there's just a like, okay, like we can just get off of a thing and like drop what our mind wants to obsess on and go, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is all fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to live. We'll get through this like we've gotten through everything. Life's a bit of a funny joke. And if we don't acknowledge that, then we're hooped.
We're hooped. I love when Jordan says that. He says that word I like a lot, so he says it, and every time he says it, I respond like that. I like saying it. It's a fun thing to say. We're hooped.
It is fun to say.
We're hooped. Well, I was going to say something. I forget because of the hoop thing. I was going to say two things. One is I wanted to shout out my favorite comedians, but I wanted to say something else before that. You were saying we have to... Oh, I was going to say that my main advice to people lately, I feel like, has been like, go have some fun.
Yeah.
Just like, stop being so serious and trying to fix everything and make everything. Just like go have a good time. Do whatever's fun. And then I want to tell everyone about my favorite comedian who Jordan introduced me to, but because you probably don't know who he is.
Correct.
So I want to make him more famous.
We can name a few, but we'll definitely name him. A few. Yeah. Let's say, like, I think we warm up with, like, here are a few that we've been watching more of over the last year, and Le Piste de la Resistance, your favorite new. You just want to name him?
No, we can name a bunch. Okay. You want to give a bunch of recommendations?
Sure.
A funny thing?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, and then I'll list them in the show notes below so that you all can find them easily, and then you'll go and...
Yeah, I would say just like favorite books, favorite authors, favorite musicians, like there's always going to be some level of, it's quite a personal thing because it's an art form and like, you know, what their content is about and what time of life you're in.
So you might not find these as funny as us, but...
Totally. But I'd say over the last year, we've been, year or two, we've been watching a good amount of Dave Chappelle.
Oh.
What?
I thought we were going to start with my favorite one.
No, we're finishing with him.
Oh, okay.
Is
that what Le Piste de Resistance means?
I think so. I don't know. Some French thing that I butchered.
Okay.
Yeah, Chappelle.
Obviously, Chappelle. I feel like that's the most well-known.
I mean, I'd say unobviously to someone who's like really steeped in only leftist media. That'd be the last person you say.
Leftist media is listening to my podcast?
Yeah, I know
those people have left.
Nope, I know some people that are.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, great. I'm glad
you're here. Hi, welcome. And you made it to the end. Very impressive. Yeah, Dave Chappelle, Louis C.K., John Mulaney.
Oh yeah, we watched John Mulaney's special. You know what it's called? The most recent one.
Baby J.
A bunch of times, and I would watch it again still because
it's great.
It was funny.
It was so funny. Yeah, he went through rehab, got divorced, and then, is now sober after many years of not being sober, and yeah, it's very personal and just hilarious. The whole thing, it's very solid. We watched Andrew Schultz's special recently. A few nights ago.
We watched it twice. Really good so I just want to say I don't find I don't tend to like rewatching things, but certain comedy specials when they're really good I will watch a bunch of times because they're just so funny.
I think you watched the John Mulaney one at least 3 times.
Guy Joe Rogan's friend.
Tom Segura. Yep.
We liked his.
Yep, we liked his stuff.
I liked him.
And the new person who's from Vancouver, Canada, my hometown.
Jordan introduced me to him. His name is Phil Hanley.
Hanley.
So he has a bunch of YouTube clips. So you can go on his YouTube and you can find the best of 2023 or whatever.
And his whole specials.
And they're shorter. Oh yeah, he does have 2 1-hour things maybe. But for me, my favorite thing, I don't use TikTok ever for anything except to watch Phil Hanley because he regularly, every day, puts up a new, he's mostly crowd work.
But his
stuff is mostly crowd work.
That he puts on social media. That's very different than the thing that you...
Oh, do you think his whole special... I feel like when we watched the whole special, some of it was not, but a lot of it was still crowd work, no?
So, with any stand-up comic who's currently working, currently touring, the last stuff you want to put on your social media is your material, because your material is your backbone.
We missed him coming here, and so you're saying we missed his best jokes?
Not necessarily.
He came to Vancouver.
I'm just saying... You're not burning material if you put crowd work on your social media. That's what you build your personal brand with because that's just the interactive stuff of you freestyling.
Okay, well, his crowd work is excellent and it's so funny. And if you go on his TikTok, there are endless videos that if you just want a little bump of humor in your day, you can go on TikTok and just go through each one and just watch a bunch in a row. And they're so funny.
Or his Instagram, if you just want to be on that platform, he also posts them on there.
Oh, I'm not on... I don't have my Instagram anymore.
Yeah.
Is that it? Are those the funny ones?
Yeah, oh yeah, for comics. Those are the ones we've had the most airtime with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, go enjoy some comedy. Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Jordan, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Super fun.